I'll never forget how casually it all began. The way one small moment, barely a flicker in an otherwise ordinary evening, managed to split my world in two. It was a Tuesday night. I just finished cleaning up after dinner, wiping down the counter while Melissa sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone like she always did. We weren't talking much, hadn't been really for a while, but that night felt unusually quiet, still, almost rehearsed. I remember reaching for a towel when her phone lit up, just on the edge of my peripheral vision. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't trying to catch her in anything, but I saw it. A message from someone named Jason H. I didn't even know she saved his number like that. Thanks again for an incredible night, winking face. I froze. The words hit me in the chest like cold air. Incredible night? With a winking emoji. Before I could even process it, Melissa snatched her phone off the counter like it was about to explode. She pressed the screen, the message disappearing before I could get another glance. Then came the laugh, loud, forced, like a nervous tick rather than something genuine. "Oh my God," she said, rolling her eyes. "That's just Jason being stupid. We were all out after work and the girls dared him to text me something flirty. You know how they are, total chaos." She tossed the explanation over her shoulder like a stray sock. No real eye contact. No actual detail. Just enough to close the book, or so she hoped. I blinked. That's weird. Why would they dare him to say that to you specifically? She shrugged. Because I'm the married one. It's harmless. You know how office people are after a few drinks. She turned her back to me then, acting like the conversation was over. Like it didn't matter. But it did. It really did. Because here's the thing, I know Melissa. Or at least I thought I did. She doesn't joke like that. Not with coworkers. She doesn't flirt. Doesn't entertain flirtation. And she sure as hell doesn't laugh off messages like that in front of me. And maybe if it had been anyone else, someone I didn't already have a weird feeling about, I might have let it go. But Jason had been popping up in her stories and sentences for weeks. Funny Jason. Jason's playlist. Jason's advice. Jason said this. Jason thinks that. I noticed it, sure, but I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to seem insecure. But that message, that wasn't nothing. That was something. I didn't argue with her that night. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even mention the knot in my stomach that was slowly tightening. But I carried it. All night. Into the next morning. Into the week after that. And here's where it started to get twisted. Because Melissa didn't just brush off the message. She flipped it. The next day she was colder. Distant. But also strangely defensive, even when I didn't say a word. "You've been acting weird," she said, sipping her coffee like we weren't about to step into something serious. "Are you mad about the Jason thing?" I shrugged. "I don't know. It just caught me off guard." She scoffed. "Wow, so now I can't even joke with my coworkers?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I can feel it. God, Ryan, it was a dare. Are we really doing this?" And just like that, I was the bad guy. The suspicious husband. The insecure one who was making a big deal out of nothing. I tried to explain that I wasn't mad, just confused. That it felt off. That I just needed a little honesty. But she didn't hear any of it. Or maybe she just chose not to. Instead, she leaned into the narrative that I was paranoid. Jealous. Possessive, even. I knew I wasn't. I mean, sure, I'd had moments in the past where I'd been a little overprotective. Especially when it came to her traveling for work or staying out late with coworkers. But I'd never stopped her. Never told her what to wear. Never checked her phone. Hell, I barely knew her password. I'd always trusted her. Until now. The real kicker? After she made me feel like the villain, she turned affectionate. Almost too affectionate. She brought me coffee at work. Sent random I love you texts. Sat close to me on the couch, playing with my hands while her phone buzzed quietly beside her. And yet, she never let me see that screen again. It was either flipped over or tucked under a pillow or conveniently charging in the other room. Every time I walked into a room, she minimized something, locked it, changed tabs, and every time I asked what she was doing, she'd say, "Just reading," or "Scrolling through reels." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the message from Jason kept replaying in my mind. The emoji, the phrasing, the sudden tension after, and worst of all, the shift. That moment was the pivot. Before that night, Melissa and I weren't perfect, but we were solid. Or I thought we were. We had our routines, our shared playlists, our inside jokes. She used to reach for my hand when we crossed parking lots. Used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. Used to laugh, like really laugh at my dumb impressions. After that night, it was like someone flipped a switch. She smiled at the right times, said the right things, acted the part. But the warmth was gone. I started to feel like I was living with someone performing being a wife rather than actually wanting to be one. And yet, every time I brought up the message again, even lightly, she shut it down hard. "You seriously still don't believe me?" she said one evening, slamming a cabinet a little too loudly. "What do you want from me, Ryan? Do you want me to apologize for something I didn't do?" I just looked at her. "I want you to tell me the truth." She turned around, crossed her arms, and stared at me like I was a stranger. "You're exhausting when you get like this." And maybe I was. Maybe part of me was becoming obsessive, hyper-aware. Maybe part of me was digging into things I would have ignored 6 months ago. But that's what betrayal does. Even if it's just suspected, even if you haven't caught it fully, it changes you. It sharpens your instincts. It hijacks your peace. From that point on, I started noticing everything. Her new perfume, her sudden interest in doing her hair before work, the way she dressed, tighter tops, bolder lipstick, like she was heading to a second location I didn't know about. She said it was just a confidence thing. "I've been feeling good about myself lately," she said, flipping her curls in the mirror. "Isn't that a good thing?" And yeah, it should be. But when your wife is radiating attention that never seems directed at you, and when her coworker is texting her about incredible nights, it's hard to see it as harmless. She stopped asking me to pick her up from work. She started coming home later. And the worst part? She never looked guilty. She looked smug, like she knew I was onto her and dared me to prove it. But I had nothing. Just that one message. And a gut that refused to quiet down. So I kept it all inside. My doubts. My spiraling thoughts. My fears. I buried them under small talk and takeout and TV shows we weren't really watching. And that, I think, was the most damaging part of it all. Not the message, not the emoji, not even the lie. It was watching someone you love choose to make you feel crazy. Just to protect their secret. You know how they say hindsight is 20/20ths? Yeah. That phrase haunted me for months. After that night with the text, after Melissa convinced me it was just a harmless joke, things didn't go back to normal. Not really. But I didn't catch everything at once. It wasn't a thunderclap or some grand reveal. It was death by paper cuts. Quiet, creeping changes. Little shifts that, on their own, didn't scream something's wrong. But together, they built a case. The first real red flag came a week later. I was grabbing something from the closet when I noticed a shopping bag tucked behind her yoga mat. I pulled it out and peeked inside, curious more than anything, and saw a receipt from a high-end department store. $200 on perfume and makeup. All brand names. The kind of stuff she used to walk right past because it was too expensive to justify. I remember staring at the receipt like it was written in another language. Not because of the price, but because she hadn't mentioned any of it. No unboxing excitement. No, "Do you like this scent?" Nothing. That night, she wore the perfume. A musky, sweet scent I didn't recognize. She walked past me on her way out the door, said she had a girls' dinner with some coworkers, and I asked if I could smell her new perfume. She blinked, paused for half a second, then smiled too wide. "Oh, that," she said. "It's just a sample I got at work. No big deal." A sample. From work. Sure. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. But inside, something started calcifying. Over the next couple weeks, the girls' dinners multiplied. First once a week, then twice, then every other night. Always with the same people, always at different places, and always without me. I offered to drive her once, just trying to be supportive. She hesitated. "No need," she said quickly. I'll just Uber. It's right by the office anyway. The way she said it, there was something rehearsed about it, like she'd already prepared her lines. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just being cautious after the text incident, that marriage was a long game and you had to trust through the weird chapters. But then came the shift in physical affection. Subtle at first. Her hugs felt lighter. Her kisses became quick and distracted. She started sleeping farther from me in bed, like her body was pulling away even when she didn't realize it. And I'd wake up sometimes and find her already dressed, phone in hand, scrolling. She'd quickly flip the screen when I stirred. Just catching up on emails, she'd mumble. Go back to sleep. She never used to check emails in the morning. Not before coffee. Not before me. I started paying more attention to her phone habits. Not obsessively, not yet, but enough to notice patterns. She took her phone into the bathroom with her now. Every time. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd wait until I looked away before checking it. Once, she left it on the kitchen counter and walked out to grab the mail. The screen lit up twice in 30 seconds, both times with notifications from JH. And then she practically sprinted back inside to grab it like she'd left the stove on. JH. Jason H. I knew it was him. I knew. But every time I got close to asking about it, I'd freeze. Because I didn't want to be that guy. The insecure, overbearing husband who doesn't let his wife have friends. I didn't want to be the one who broke the trust just because my gut had a bad feeling. And besides, Melissa had always been social. She worked in marketing, lived on group chats and team outings. Her social life was part of her charm. It's one of the things I fell for when we first met. That outgoing energy, that easy confidence. But now, that charm wasn't pointed toward me anymore. It was facing someone else. I could feel it. She started dressing differently. Not just better ****, tighter jeans, low-cut tops, heels for work even though she used to hate them. I told her she looked amazing one morning because she did, but her response wasn't what I expected. She didn't light up. She didn't lean in for a kiss. She just said, thanks, like it came from a stranger on the street. One night, we were getting ready for bed, and I noticed a small red mark on her neck. I froze. What's that? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She blinked, touched the spot. What? Oh, probably from my necklace. Kept twisting around today. A necklace mark. But she hadn't worn one. I knew that because I'd looked at her that morning when she kissed me goodbye. No necklace. I nodded. Yeah, maybe. But in my head, something cracked open. That weekend, I brought up the idea of us taking a short trip together. Just the two of us. We used to do that a couple times a year, weekend getaways, last-minute drives to the coast, cozy Airbnbs with fireplaces and wine. She hesitated. Things are crazy at work, she said. Jason's team is slammed, and they're pulling people in from other departments. There it was. Jason's name. The way she said it, so casual, so practiced, it made me want to throw something. But I didn't. I just stared at her for a second too long. And she noticed. What? She asked, a defensive edge already in her voice. I shook my head. Nothing. Just, I miss you, that's all. She looked down, then back up, her expression softening for the first time in weeks. I miss you too, she whispered. I've just been under pressure lately, but I promise we'll make time. Soon. It was the kind of promise that sounds good in the moment but vanishes the second you look away. And then came the business trip. She told me about it a week in advance. Said she'd be flying out to Denver for a conference. Said it was mandatory. Said she'd be gone for 3 nights, maybe 4. I tried not to show it, but my stomach dropped. We'd been to Denver once together. It was the first trip we ever took as a couple. The idea of her going there, alone, felt like a cruel callback to a version of us that no longer existed. I asked who else was going. She said it was a mixed group, rattled off a few names I didn't recognize, then added, and probably Jason. His department's presenting something. Of course. I offered to drive her to the airport. She declined. I'll just Uber, she said. You've got work early the next day, right? I did. but I still wanted to take her. I should have taken her. The night before she left, she was unusually affectionate. Held me longer than she had in weeks. Kissed my cheek while we were watching TV. Felt nice. Familiar. But also hollow. Like she was softening the blow before pulling the trigger. She packed light. Too light. I remember thinking that as she zipped her suitcase. Just a few blouses, one pair of heels, no laptop charger. I almost asked about it, but didn't. When she left the next morning, I stood in the driveway watching her Uber pull away. I didn't wave. I just stood there. That trip unraveled me. She called once each night, quick check-ins, all on speakerphone. Always in a hotel room. Always saying she was about to crash. Always sounding distracted. I asked how the conference was. She said it was fine. Gave short answers. Laughed at nothing. When she got back, she barely mentioned it. No stories. No recap. Just said it was a blur. I should have confronted her. Right then. But I didn't. Because deep down, I think I was waiting for the proof to come find me. For the truth to spill out without me having to force it. I didn't want to fight a war with no ammunition. But I also knew one thing for sure. This wasn't in my head. This wasn't insecurity. Melissa was drifting. And someone else was pulling her in. It didn't come in a text message this time. Came in person. Live. No buffer. No excuse. I'd like to say I was shocked. But honestly, by the time it happened, I think some part of me had already known. Not just suspected. Not hoped I was wrong. Known. It happened at a party, one of those casual mixers Melissa's company hosted every few months. Open bar, catered finger food, awkward icebreaker games. Normally, I'd skip that kind of thing, but this time she actually invited me. That should have been a good sign. Should have meant something. But now, looking back, I think she invited me just to cover her tracks. To prove, on the surface, that she had nothing to hide. It was damage control disguised as hospitality. I remember standing by the drink table, holding a watered-down bourbon and trying to make small talk with some guy from accounting, when I saw her across the room. And just like that, the rest of the noise disappeared. There she was, laughing. Not with her friends. Not with some random coworker. With Jason. The same Jason from the text. The same Jason whose name had shown up more times than I could count in her vocabulary lately. At first, it looked like innocent conversation. Friendly. But then I noticed the details, his hand grazing her back. The way she leaned into him, like she was sharing something just for him. The way her eyes lit up. Not in a polite, public way, but like they were alone in the room. And then, God help me, I watched her brush something from his shoulder. Something imaginary. That int asterisk mate. Familiar gesture people don't do unless there's history. Unless there's comfort. My grip tightened around the glass. Knuckles white. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Until she turned and kissed him. Not a peck. Not a cheek kiss. Not a misread angle. A kiss. Real. Lingering. Soft. Right there in the hallway just off the main room. I saw it from a distance, over the shoulder of the guy talking to me. I don't think they realized anyone could see. They were tucked away near the coat check, half obscured by a column. But I saw. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel confusion or anxiety or doubt. I felt clarity. That kiss pulled the veil off everything. I stood there, stone still, heart hammering, watching the person I loved betray me in real time. It was weird how calm I felt in the moment. How numb. Like my brain didn't know where to store what I had just witnessed. Like it needed time to file the pain properly before I could feel it. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't rush over, didn't scream, didn't throw my drink. I just turned around, walked out of the room, and sat on a bench in the lobby of the hotel where the event was being held. And I just sat there for maybe 20 minutes, staring at nothing, listening to the distant hum of music and conversations and laughter from upstairs, knowing she was still up there, pretending. Eventually, I heard heels clicking on the tile. Melissa. She found me in the lobby, phone in hand, probably looking for me because I'd vanished too long. She put on the face, the cheerful, concerned wife expression, like she had nothing to hide. There you are, she said, smiling a little too brightly. I was wondering where you'd gone. I didn't see you for a bit. I looked at her. Just looked. She paused. Is something wrong? That question nearly broke me. I wanted to say, yeah, something's wrong. I just watched you kiss another man and now you're pretending it didn't happen like I'm too blind to notice. But I didn't. I said, no, just needed some air. She tilted her head, squinting at me. You sure? I nodded once. Yep, let's go home. She hesitated, probably weighing whether she should make an excuse to stay longer, but eventually nodded. Okay, let me grab my coat. We rode home in silence. She scrolled through her phone, occasionally chuckling at some message, as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just seen her lips on someone else's, as if she hadn't just burned a hole through the foundation of everything we'd built. When we got home, she kicked off her shoes, poured herself a glass of wine, and asked if I wanted to watch something on Netflix. I said no. I went upstairs. She didn't follow. For the next few days, I lived like a ghost in my own home, moving through routines, cooking, cleaning, sleeping beside her. But I was gone. Something inside me had shut off. And here's the strange part. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't pull her aside and unload the anger. I didn't blow up or demand answers or pack a bag. Because I knew something now. Something I hadn't been ready to admit before. Melissa wasn't the person I thought she was. And the moment I saw her kissing Jason, everything she'd said in the past few months, the denials, the deflections, the fake affection, it all clicked. She had been lying. For a long time. And worse than lying, she had been orchestrating. See, what I realized was this. She hadn't just cheated. She'd been playing a role. Shifting blame. Making me doubt myself on purpose. That's what made it feel different from just a betrayal. This wasn't a mistake. This was strategy. Misdirection. A whole performance. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't even angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of feeling crazy. Tired of playing investigator. Tired of being made to feel like I was the one ruining the relationship because I noticed the obvious. So I didn't give her what she expected. I didn't rage. I detached. Over the next few weeks, I watched her like an actor on stage. The exaggerated laughter. The spontaneous kisses. The just because dinners she started cooking. The compliments that felt like they came from a script. It was also manufactured. And when you step back far enough, when you stop reacting emotionally, you see the strings. She wasn't doing any of it for me. She was doing it to control the story. To keep the illusion alive, at least from the outside. Her friends, our neighbors, our families, they all still thought we were fine. Because Melissa made sure of that. She posted pictures of our date nights online. Told everyone how lucky she was. Left little notes for me to find and share. But it wasn't love. It was optics. And I refused to play along anymore. Every time she tried to draw me back in, through guilt, through charm, through forced affection, I just gave her neutral responses. Not cold. Not cruel. Just absent. Emotionally checked out. Because I didn't want to fight for someone who had already left me a long time ago. And make no mistake, she had left. Long before the kiss. Long before Jason. She'd left when she started lying. When she looked me in the eye and called me paranoid. When she made me feel like I was losing my mind for noticing the truth. That's the real betrayal. Not the infidelity. The gaslighting. The we asterisk p asterisk nice doubt. The slow erasure of reality until you don't even trust your own instincts. But now, I trusted them more than ever. Because I had seen the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream or smash anything or march into the room with ultimatums. No grand confrontation. No dramatic exit. Just silence. That was the moment I broke. Not in a loud, explosive way, but in a quiet, internal one. Like something deep inside me had finally given out. A wire snapped, a connection cut, and I didn't even feel pain. Just vacancy. The day after I saw them kiss, I went to work like nothing happened. Answered emails. Sat in a meeting. Smiled when people cracked jokes. I even brought donuts for the team. Not because I was in a good mood, far from it, but because I needed everyone to think I was. I needed the mask to stay on a little longer while I figured out what to do next. At home, Melissa acted like everything was normal. She was back to her routines, except this time they were dripping with effort. She cooked my favorite meals, played my favorite playlists when I walked in the door, sat next to me on the couch and leaned her head on my shoulder like we were still us. But none of it reached me. None of it touched the part of me that used to believe in her. Because that part had been incinerated in that hallway kiss. Now everything she did felt fake, staged, performed, and maybe the saddest part of all? I didn't even feel the urge to confront her anymore. That flame, the one fueled by outrage, hurt, betrayal, it had already burned itself out. What was left wasn't anger. It was indifference. That's what no one tells you about heartbreak. People think it ends in screaming matches or slammed doors or crying on the bathroom floor. But the real end comes quietly, when you stop caring, when you stop hoping for an explanation, an apology, a turnaround. I started watching her the way you watch a movie character you don't quite believe anymore. I saw the way she mirrored my moods, how she'd mimic my tone, my energy, trying to sync with me like we were still in rhythm. But it was all a step off. The eye contact lingered too long. The affection felt like obligation. Even the way she said, "I love you," was hollow. It's strange how once you start seeing the rewrites. You spot the plot holes. You realize the script's been edited a dozen times behind your back. So I stopped reading the lines. I started pulling away emotionally at first. I wouldn't initiate conversations anymore. Wouldn't lean in for kisses. Wouldn't text her during the day. If she asked about work, I gave short answers. If she made a joke, I gave her a polite smile. I was civil, but absent. And she noticed. Of course she did. "Are we okay?" she asked one night, sitting across from me at dinner, her voice soft. I looked up from my plate. "Yeah. Why?" "I don't know. You've just been quiet lately." I nodded. "Just tired." She stared at me for a second, like she was trying to read something on my face. But she wasn't reading the truth. She was reading the version I was letting her see. The one that had learned not to give her the full picture anymore. "Do you still love me?" she asked suddenly. I paused. Not out of shock, but because I didn't know how to answer anymore. Love isn't just a feeling. It's an action, a choice. And I had loved her, completely, recklessly, every damn day for years. But now I didn't even know who she was, or who I was with her. So I lied. "Of course," I said. She smiled at that, reached across the table and squeezed my hand, like we were healing, like she believed we could patch it up with chicken parmesan and touchscreens and staged in asterisk Macy. But I wasn't healing. I was retreating. Every night I stayed up later, pretended to be watching TV or reading when really I was thinking, mapping things out, replaying every conversation we'd had in the last 6 months, decoding every look, every excuse, every late night and brushed off question. And once you start seeing the patterns, you can't unsee them. There was no one moment of betrayal. It had been a series of betrayals, each one disguised as something else. She didn't just cheat on me physically. She cheated on the reality we were supposed to share. And somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being her partner. I'd become her audience, her prop. So I stopped reacting. I stopped giving her emotional fuel. If she got upset about something, I didn't console her. If she was unusually chipper, I didn't mirror her mood. I kept everything neutral, still, like a mirror that stopped reflecting anything but blankness. Eventually, she started pushing. "Why don't you ever touch me anymore?" "I do," I said. "We hugged this morning." "That's not the same," she replied. I shrugged. "I've been tired." Is it me?" Now that was a cruel question. Not because it was unfair, but because she already knew the answer. Deep down, she had to. You don't just forget that you've kissed someone else while married. You don't just forget that your phone lights up with messages from a guy you swore was just a work friend. But she kept playing the part, kept asking questions she already knew the answers to. One night, I found myself watching her scroll through her phone, laughing at something on her screen while we sat in bed, and I realized she was still pretending, still curating, still keeping secrets right in front of me, and I was done pretending not to notice. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to win. I didn't even want an apology anymore. I just wanted peace. So I started creating space for it. I went for long drives alone, started taking lunches by myself, spent more time at the gym, more time working late. And when I was home, I stayed quiet, calm, controlled. Melissa filled the silence with anecdotes and forced laughter. She tried to initiate date nights again, suggested we take a weekend trip, maybe hit the reset button. But I knew the truth. There is no reset button once trust is gone. There's no version of us that could ever go back to what we were before the lies, before the gaslighting, before the hallway kiss that rewrote everything. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was mourning me, the version of me that used to believe in us. The guy who used to think love could survive anything. The man who used to think that if you gave enough, sacrificed enough, stayed loyal enough, you'd get the same in return. But that guy was gone. What was left was someone more cautious, less romantic, but also a freer. And I made a quiet promise to myself that night, lying in bed next to her while she texted someone she thought I'd never suspect again. I promised myself I'd stop trying to fix something that was already broken beyond repair. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't play detective. I wouldn't beg. I would move on emotionally first, then physically. I would reclaim my identity, piece by piece, without asking for her permission or forgiveness. Because I finally saw her for who she was. And more importantly, I saw me for who I needed to become. You don't plan for something like that. It wasn't like I went looking for anyone. I wasn't prowling around for attention, or comfort, or some emotional rebound to patch up the crater Melissa had left in me. If anything, I had fully committed to staying alone, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Just me, my silence, and whatever was left of my dignity. But then Claire happened, and I swear it started out simple. Claire was Melissa's younger sister. We'd known each other for years, of course, family dinners, birthdays, weddings. She was always the quiet one in the room. The kind of person who never fought for the spotlight but somehow managed to hold your attention anyway. She had this calm energy about her. Grounded. Real. Back then, I never thought much about it. Not in that way. She was family by extension. The cool, bookish sibling who brought thoughtful gifts and always helped clean up when everyone else had already migrated to the living room. Melissa used to call her boring. I used to call her refreshing. The first time we spoke alone was at a coffee shop, of all places. Total accident. I'd gone there to clear my head on a random Saturday morning, just trying to get out of the house without making up another excuse for Melissa. I ordered my usual, found a seat by the window, and was halfway through checking emails when I heard someone say my name. I looked up. There she was, Claire. She looked surprised too, like she hadn't planned it either. "Hey," she said with a small smile. "Didn't know this was your spot." I smiled back. "Yeah, it's a new habit." She glanced at the chair across from me. "Mind if I join?" "Please." That's how it started. We didn't talk about Melissa, not at first. We talked about books, movies, the weather. She told me about the nonprofit she worked for. I told her I'd finally fixed the leak under our sink that Melissa had been bugging me about for months. It wasn't until the second or third coffee meetup that Claire finally lowered her voice and said, "You don't seem okay." I laughed, softly, bitterly. "Is it that obvious? You seem quiet, different." "I feel different." And that was the first honest sentence I'd spoken out loud in a long time. She didn't push. She didn't ask invasive questions. She just nodded, sipped her coffee, and let the silence sit between us like an old friend. I didn't tell her everything, not right away. I wasn't sure how much she knew, and I wasn't interested in dragging her into the wreckage Melissa had created. But there was something about Claire's presence that chipped away at the wall I'd built. She didn't treat me like a victim. She didn't look at me with pity or judgment. She just listened. And maybe that's what I needed more than anything. Someone to simply let me speak without trying to fix me. The more we talked, the more I realized how different she was from her sister. Melissa was fire, burning, dazzling, unpredictable. Claire was earth, steady, solid, and still somehow magnetic. Where Melissa turned every room into a stage, Claire had a way of making even a quiet moment feel important. Like it mattered. After that, we started running into each other more often. At the grocery store, at the park, at a bookstore we both liked. I stopped believing it was coincidence after the fourth or fifth time. Eventually, we dropped the pretense and just started planning the meetings. Lunch once a week. Walks after work. Long conversations in my car that lingered even after the engine had gone cold. And all the while, Melissa was still spinning her story back home. Still pretending everything was fine. Still setting the table like a loving wife and smiling through gritted teeth, as if she could will me back into loving her. But the more time I spent with Claire, the more I realized what love actually felt like. Or maybe not love exactly, at least not yet, but something closer to ease. Connection. That effortless kind of bond where you don't have to wear a mask, or perform, or double-check your tone. One day, Claire and I were walking through a quiet trail behind the lake near her apartment. It was late afternoon, the sun dropping low behind the trees, and there was this moment where we both stopped to look at the reflection on the water. She turned to me and said, "You seem lighter." "Do I?" "Yeah. You used to look like you were holding your breath. Now you don't." I didn't say anything right away. I just nodded, hands in my pockets. And then I said, "I think I was. For a long time." She looked at me, her expression soft. "I'm glad you're not anymore." And just like that, I felt something stir inside me. Something I thought had died a long time ago. Not desire. Not romance. Just possibility. The idea that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't broken beyond repair. That maybe I could still be seen, understood, valued. I didn't kiss her that day. I didn't even touch her.